So we'll continue with daily Gita. The verse of the day is from chapter 17, text 21. But charity performed with the expectation of some return, or with a desire for fruitive results, or in a grudging mood, is said to be charity in the mode of passion. Let's go back to the three types of charity, or the three ways we can engage in charity. Body, mind, and soul. On the level of the body, charity means taking care of food, clothing, shelter, so on. Charity on the body, we get that. Charity on the emotional level, or the mind, is giving love, giving appreciation, giving forgiveness, giving love, joy. That is giving charity on the level of the mind. Spiritually, we know giving in charity means to facilitate the living entity coming closer to the Supreme, to Krishna. That act is charitable on the spiritual level. Let's talk about the emotional space, the emotional level of giving charity for a moment. Giving in charity on the emotional level is actually far, far more difficult than giving someone money, putting some money in the donation box, supporting our favorite charity. In fact, I would say, we know that essentially half the world's population is living in either poverty or in extreme poverty. True fact. All facts are true. Essentially half the world's population. I would venture to say that 90% of the world's population is impoverished emotionally, lacking in joy, lacking in appreciation, lacking in love, impoverished on that level. Giving in charity emotionally is far, far the greater need in society than merely, I shouldn't say merely because that's important too, giving on the level of the body. In our relationships, when we get into relationships, particularly marriage, we go into the relationship with a lot of passion, a lot of rajas. And we don't know it in the beginning because that is the nature of Rajagun. In the beginning, it's wonderful, but in the end, there's unmitigated disaster. So in the beginning of the relationship, it's all wonderful. We think we are giving in charity, and in fact we are. In the beginning of the relationship, we do everything and we allow the other person to get away with all kinds of things in the beginning of the relationship. So at the beginning of the relationship, there's a lot of charitable, emotionally charitable acts, but they're all based in passion. Now that's a problem. We know it's a problem because, we know it for many reasons, but Krishna clarifies the reason why it's a problem, or he describes it by saying, 3 or 4 verses earlier, that activities in the mode of passion are neither stable nor permanent. That's the problem. So a relationship, a marriage that has begun completely surrounded and immersed in Rajaguna is perfectly fine for the very beginning. But it will be neither stable nor permanent if it remains in Rajaguna. So there has to be a transformation from Rajaguna to Sattvaguna, where our charitable disposition, which seemed fine in the beginning of the relationship, is no longer enough to sustain that relationship. The charitable disposition we had in the beginning of the relationship was in the mode of Rajaguna. It's neither stable nor permanent. In the beginning it was fine, but it's going to end in an unmitigated disaster if we do not transform our charitable nature into Sattvaguna. How do we make that transformation? It's simpler and harder than you think. The quality of the mode of passion, charity in the mode of passion, is that we have some expectation of a return. We want some reciprocity. The mode of goodness is we don't need reciprocity. We have no need, no requirement for someone to reciprocate. There's no expectation of return. There's certainly no grudging in our giving, but there's no expectation of reciprocity. How do we get there? If our relationships require us to exist in the mode of goodness in order for them to be stable and permanent, in order for them to be lasting and uplifting, permanent doesn't simply mean you live in a relationship for 40 years in misery. That's not permanent. A permanent relationship in the mode of goodness means it is long-lasting, but it is also uplifting. Let's just make sure we understand that. So how to get this transformation to take place from Rajaguna to Sattvaguna? Simple, but a bit difficult. It is simple in that all we have to do is deal with one issue: expectations. And oftentimes we don't even know the expectations we bring into a relationship from traumas, conditioning, not only from our childhood, from previous lifetimes. We bring all kinds of foolishness into relationships. We don't even know, much of the time, the expectations we have on our spouse or the person in a new relationship. So the first thing we have to do is come to understand. Now, we're not going to understand all these things, and we do not even have to identify each and every one of these expectations. What we do have to accept is that we have them. We do come into relationships with numerous expectations. So all we must do is just coach ourselves. And it is not, sometimes we think that this is some kind of difficult, amorphous, what's the word? New age kind of thinking. No, it's really quite simple. Difficult, but simple. The expectations we put on others, oftentimes we don't know what they are. But when we do, we at least have to accept the fact that we are putting expectations on others. When we recognize that we have expectations, we're putting expectations on others, even when we don't say such, we do so in some, by a look, by a sigh. In many ways, we put expectations on others. What we have to train ourselves is to accept that we have these expectations, but recognize we have no right whatsoever to put our expectations on others. Sometimes we think we have the right because we've married them, because they are our mother, because they're our father, whatever cultural idea we may think. The lesson we have to teach ourselves is that we do have absolute no right to have an expectation of another. Once we, at least theoretically, accept that, then we can begin to work on giving in the mode of goodness, accepting I have no right to expect anything from this person in return. In the beginning, it's very difficult because the expectations are overwhelming. Even the ones we don't know are always pushing us to infringe upon other people's being and freedoms with our expectations. In the beginning, it's very difficult. But once you get into the habit, and you cannot fake it, you have to live it. Once you get into the habit of first theoretically accepting that you don't have the right to impose your expectations on the other, but then it becomes a recognition, a acceptance, then giving becomes the easiest thing to do in the world. Charity on an emotional level, compliments, showing appreciation, forgiveness, love, it will flow. You cannot stop it. But you can't fake it. Omar Vishnu said we should try to have no expectations. I'm going to give it a shot for a week. Won't work. Won't work. You have to do the hard lifting of actually letting go of your expectations from the other person. And it doesn't mean giving up. This is not about giving up. It's about accepting that I am imposing myself upon another person, and I have no right to do so. And we all do it. Even the nicest people among us. It takes practice, deep work practice to first accept it theoretically and then live it. and something miraculous happens. The relationship becomes smooth. I won't say smooth sailing because that's kind of cheesy. But it comes to a point where you know there is nothing that can destroy the relationship. Doesn't mean bad things won't happen. There won't be disruptions. There won't be arguments. No, that's going to happen. But there becomes a point where there's a recognition, a deep-seated recognition that there's nothing that can break the relationship except except deliberate choice. Relationships are no longer a mystery. But again, you can't fake it. You have to do the hard work of actually letting go of not your expectations. Working on your own expectations that's another lecture. Working on and accepting that I do not have the right to impose my expectations on that person simply because, not even simply because of a marriage, no reason whatsoever. What comes from living that idea comes a recognition that you actually don't need for them to reciprocate your love. And that is the most wonderful realization. The realization that you actually